Hey guys, tonight we're heading to the green, mist-wrapped highlands of 14th century Ethiopia, specifically the forested hills of Kaffa, the birthplace of coffee. You're barefoot on soft damp soil, brushing past branches still dripping from the early rain. Your guide is a wiry old man who smells like smoke and cinnamon, and he says you're just in time. The morning roast is about to begin. The air is thick with the scent of mud and crushed leaves. You hear birds cackling somewhere above and bees. Drunk on nectar zigzag lazily near your ears. This is not a fast-paced world. It's all hand-carved mortar, wooden walking sticks, and the occasional goat bleeding at absolutely nothing. You probably won't survive this if you're the kind of person who needs 3 apps to make toast. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you. Ethiopia would have called this the Zemen Yamaramer, or the Season of Dreams. Let's see if we can make that true for you. Now dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You reach a clearing, and the old man gestures with a crooked finger. Here, he says, and you see the coffee trees. They're not lined in tidy rows like some imperial plantation. These grow wild, with glossy green leaves and little red berries that glisten like polished gems. The trees are short, modest, humble. Things for a drink that will someday rule entire empires. You squat beside one and pluck a berry. It feels firm, not juicy like a grape, but with just enough give to make you curious. You pop it in your mouth. It's sweet at first, and then surprisingly bitter. You pretend to like it because the old man is watching. He laughs anyway. That's how it always starts, he says. You're not the first to taste this strange little fruit. The legend, half myth, half sleepy bedtime gossip, says a goat herder named Kaldi was the original test subject. His goat supposedly munched on these berries and started dancing, bleating, and pulling all-nighters long before humans caught on. Historians still argue whether Kaldi ever existed, or if someone just made him up to explain how he ended up sipping insomnia. Either way, the trees don't care. They've been here for centuries, growing quietly among lichens and moss, waiting for the right hands to come along with a mortar and pestle, and some time to kill that. You follow your guide into a nearby tukul, a circular hut with mud walls and a thatched roof that sighs in the breeze. Inside, a small fire crackles, and a woman squats over it, tossing dried coffee beans into a shallow pan. She doesn't speak yet. This is a sacred part of the morning. You just sit, legs folded beneath you, as the rich scent of roasting beans curls around your head like incense. There's no electric grinder here, no milk frother, just rhythm. A slow, hypnotic motion as the woman stirs the pan with a flat wooden spatula. Every so often, she leans closer and listens. Yes, listens, because beans will tell you when they're ready, if you have the patience to hear it. And patience is the true currency here, not gold or silver. Someone hands you a small bowl of kolo roasted barley and chickpeas, and a cup of water perfumed with crushed mint. This is just the waiting room of the ritual. In a moment, you'll watch as the roasted beans are ground by hand, pounded in a stone bowl with rhythmic, echoing strikes that make the whole tukul feel like a drum. There's a quiet reverence in the way the villagers handle the process. No rushing, no multitasking. Coffee isn't a product here, it's a presence. A guest that requires attention, stories, maybe even flattery. You'll see people bow their heads lightly before the brewing starts. Some whisper prayers. Others offer jokes or praise the firewood, just to make sure the coffee spirits aren't in a mood. Outside, more villagers arrive, grandmothers in striped shawls, children with banana peels stuck to their feet, a man holding a live chicken under his arm. like a purse. You recognize none of them, but everyone greets you like you've always belonged. One boy nudges your side and whispers, "If you drink all 3 rounds, you'll dream about lions." His eyes are dead serious. His breath smells like raw onion as the fire crackles lower. The woman pours the crushed grounds into a jabina, a rounded black clay pot with a long spout and an oddly delicate handle. The jabina looks like it was designed by someone who got halfway through the job and took a nap, but it works. She adds water, sets it on the coals, and hums softly. The bubbling begins. The air thickens, and just like that, you're no longer in the 21st century. You're in a place where time stretches, where stories are stirred in with the beans, and where the line between waking and dreaming is more of a polite suggestion than a firm rule. The woman removes the pot, swings it in a small circle, just enough to settle the grounds, and pours the first round. It's strong, smoky, and a little gritty. No milk, no sugar. Just history. Someone offers you a cup. It's hot. You sip carefully and pretend it doesn't burn your tongue. "First round's for the body," the old man says, stretching his legs. "Next one's for the mind. The last one, that's for your soul." You nod as if you understand, but mostly you're focused on not spilling. Outside, a rooster lets out a confused cry, like it forgot what hour it is. A few people chuckle. Someone starts gossiping about a neighbor's cousin's missing sandals. It all blends together into a kind of living lullaby. Here in Kaffa, coffee is more than a drink. It's a way to talk without hurrying. A ritual wrapped in smoke, small talk, and slow boiling water. And you're part of it now. Whether or not you can dance like Kaldi's goats, we'll soon find out. You're still sitting in the tukul, legs half asleep and heart slightly jittery from the first round of coffee, when the second jabina is set on the fire. The first brew abel was bold, earthy, and deeply serious. Now comes Tona, the second round, meant to ease your mind open like a flower and make space for real conversation. Not loud or rushed, but slow, curling talk, the kind that unspools. Like the smoke from the incense pot, now smoldering quietly nearby. You watch as the woman, your new favorite magician, refreshes the jabina with water and a handful more grounds, just enough to deepen the flavor, not overwhelm it. There's no measuring here, no tablespoons or timers. It's all muscle memory, rhythm, and inherited instinct passed from mothers to daughters for generations. Outside, the breeze carries the scent of wild basil and sun-warmed animal hide. A donkey sighs somewhere, long and dramatic, like he too has tasted the coffee and is pondering existence. You shift your weight and let your eyes wander to the forest edge, where a boy climbs a tree barefoot, plucks a single fig, and chews it thoughtfully like a philosopher with dental issues. The conversation has shifted now. It's no longer about how the beans are ground or which wood smokes best. No, Tona is when the gossip starts. A woman with laugh lines so deep they might qualify as ancient texts leans toward her neighbor and murmurs something behind her cup. A pause, then a burst of stifled giggles. You can't catch the whole phrase, but you hear the word for chicken and pregnancy in the same sentence. That's all the context you need. You sip your second round. It's smoother, now less bitter, more like an invitation. It tastes like roasted peanuts and shadowy corners of stories not meant for outsiders, which of course makes them taste even better. Someone points to the rooster pecking near the doorway. He's been hanging around her house every morning. They whisper, nodding toward a young woman who pretends not to hear. Her cheeks are flushed. She hides behind her cup. The older women lean in as if the bird might offer clarification. This is the true beauty of the ceremony. It's never really about the caffeine. It's about pulling people into a shared moment, a collective hush where truths can be hinted at. but not shouted. Historians still argue whether these ceremonies originated as religious practice, village diplomacy, or just a creative excuse to roast things. But everyone agrees, gossip is the real dessert. The man with the chicken purse from earlier leans your way and says, "You should have been here last week." Meskun's cow gave birth to a calf with one white eye. She says it's a sign she have twins. He nods solemnly. You nod back, because what else are you supposed to do? A girl no older than 12 is pretending not to listen while sweeping the doorway with exaggerated motions. Every time someone mentions a name, her broom pauses. Every time they lower their voices, she gets suspiciously closer. Her mother finally tosses a peanut shell at her. Sweep the floor, not the gossip, but you understand her curiosity. There's a sleepy kind of electricity in the air, like the whole village is holding its breath, not in tension, but in anticipation. What will be revealed? Who will say the wrong name at the wrong time? And most importantly, who roasted the beans best this week? You're starting to learn the subtle signs of social ranking here. Whoever has the finest incense, the deepest jabina, or the crispiest roasted barley gets slightly longer turns to speak. Not official rules, of course, but customs are sometimes sharper than laws. One woman, wrapped in a shawl dyed indigo and lined with gold thread, clears her throat. Silence falls. She's not the village elder, but she holds herself like someone who's been right about things for decades. She lifts her cup with 2 fingers, sips slowly, and says, "I saw Ayin in the fields at dusk yesterday. She was wearing her festival scarf and walking the long path." Gasps, not loud, but deeply satisfying. Someone mutters, "Not the long path." Another clutches their cup like it might spill from shock. You, of course, have no idea what the long path means. But it sounds deliciously scandalous. Your guide leans in and whispers, "That's the path that passes his house." You don't ask who he is. You know better now. And so it goes. Sips and secrets. Laughs tucked behind sleeves. Tiny remarks with enormous shadows. At some point, a toddler waddles in holding a piece of injera in one hand and a goat's tail in the other. No one flinches. He's clearly welcome. He drops the tail in the fire and gets scooped up by someone who may or may not be his actual mother. The boundaries blur here. You stretch your legs a bit, and someone hands you a small bread roll wrapped in fresh leaves. It's filled with spiced lentils and humility. You chew slowly, careful not to interrupt the rhythm of the room. Outside, the forest is turning golden. Shadows lengthen like silk ribbons across the ground. Somewhere in the trees, a monkey coughs. Or laughs, you can't quite tell. There's a lull in the conversation as everyone takes a long sip. You notice how no one ever drains their cup too fast. To do so would be rushing the moment, missing the sweetness between words. And then someone breaks the silence with a gentle accusation. "You roasted your beans too quickly last week." It's said with a smile, but the tension is very real. The accused holds up their hand in mock surrender. "The fire was impatient," they reply. The room chuckles, but you can tell this was a tiny duel. That's the thing about coffee here. It's art, yes, but also sport. And sometimes a duel with dignity. As the second round nears its end, you feel something soften in your chest. The caffeine hasn't made you jittery, it's made you more present. More here. More part of this hazy, roasted, smoke-laced world. Where secrets taste like cardamom, and even the chicken semen on the joke. You hear someone humming. It's tuneless, but it wraps around the room like a lullaby. You don't know the song, but you hum along anyway. Soon the third round will come. But for now, Tona has worked its quiet magic. You've learned more in silence than words could have. Offered. And the rooster? He's back at the door again, Dot still watching. The fire is beginning to dim, replaced now by a warm amber glow that flickers across the walls of the tukul like a lazy heartbeat. Someone gently stokes it with a piece of dry eucalyptus, sending a soft crackle through the room and a brief gust of fragrance into the air. This marks the beginning of the third round baraka. The blessing cup. The jebeda has grown hot again, now filled with water and the same grounds, used once more, softer now, muted like a favorite song played on an old drum. The brew will be weaker, yes, but this is no insult, it's intentional. It's the moment for reverence, for slowing down even more, for gliding rather than walking. The woman tending the pot pours with a dancer's grace. Not a drop spills, not even a tremble. You're handed a third cup, smaller than the others, lighter in color, but somehow it carries the most weight. Baraka, after all, means blessing. As you take your first sip, someone behind you sighs long and slow, like the room itself has exhaled. You settle into your seat, feeling the weariness of the past few hours catch up with you, not the kind that begs for sleep, but the kind that says, "Stay a little longer." Across from you, the older women resume their conversations in a tone barely above a whisper. No more scandals, no more long path controversies. Now they speak of dreams, ones they had last night, or ones they suspect they inherited from their grandmothers. One woman talks about seeing a lion with human eyes. Another swears she dreamed of coffee trees growing upside down in ripe fruit, raining upward into the sky. Historians still debate whether the three-round ceremony originally mirrored the Christian Trinity, or perhaps pre-Christian rites of fire and fertility. No one here seems to care. They nod at these symbolic connections, but the real meaning comes from how people behave, how the cups are passed. The silence is held, the jokes dropped like pebbles into a quiet stream. You hear someone laugh a soft chuckle, no teeth. It's about an elder who once fell asleep mid-sip and spilled his baraka in his lap. Ever since, no one drinks the third round without sitting just a little straighter. Then comes a different kind of conversation. A low, musing tone that means someone is about to wonder out loud about the stars, or ancestors, or the price of donkeys. In rainy season. This time, it's about firewood. Do you think the coffee tastes different when you use fig wood? A slow nod. Yes, fig makes it sweeter. Olive wood makes it wise. Wise coffee. That's a new one. You remember that time Abba Teshem used acacia? Someone else chimes in, groans all around. One woman clutches her chest. Burned my tongue and cursed my dreams for a week. You smile. You don't know Abba Teshem, but you feel like you do now. The poor man will never outlive that one bad roast. The baraka round is also when confessions are made. Small ones, manageable. One man admits he never learned how to roast beans properly. His daughter always does. Another says he used to pretend he liked bitter coffee just to impress his late wife. There's a pause. Then someone murmurs, "She would have known." They all nod. You nod too. Even the rooster seems to bow his head for a moment. Your own cup is almost empty, but you're not in a hurry. The sip sits warm in your belly, and for a while, you let the taste linger. The bitterness is faint, smoothed out by the warmth of firewood and the echo of shared laughter. Suddenly, a girl with a milk tooth missing claps her hands and says, "Tell the goat story." Groans, but also grins. Apparently, this is a regular request. The storyteller, a wiry man in his 60s with eyebrows like storm clouds, clears his throat. It was the rainy season, and I was watching over my father's goats. I was 11. They scattered, of course, because goats are demons wearing wool. I ran after them, fell in the mud, and came face to face with a snake. Gasps. The little girl pulls her shawl tighter, but the snake just looked at me. Didn't hiss, didn't strike, just stared. He leans forward, and I swear on my grandfather's sandals, it said, "Your goats are in the coffee grove." Laughter erupts, soft and wheezy. Someone throws a peanut shell at him. "The snake didn't talk, old man," he shrugs. "Didn't have to." I understood anyway. Historians, unsurprisingly, have no record of talking snakes guiding goat herders to sacred coffee groves. But these are the stories that live longer than monuments. The ones folded between cups and passed down like hand-woven baskets. And just when you think the story is finished, the man adds, "That was the first time I drank coffee. Found the goats. Found a woman roasting beans under a fig tree. Married her 3 years later. Still can't roast better than her. Someone says, she still lets him think he's in charge." The third round begins to trail off now. Cups rest gently on mats. The fire has gone from crackle to glow. You can hear the night insects waking up, tuning their legs like tiny violins. People rise slowly, some to stretch, others to refill bowls of barley or chase children who started nibbling on candles. The ceremony never really ends, it just dissolves. You feel it, too, that peaceful drift, the edges of thought loosening. The coffee hasn't wired you. It's held you, like hands around a warm cup on a cold morning. You look around one more time. This hut, this ritual, these people so deeply grounded in rhythm and repetition and roast. You've only just begun to learn their stories. And the coffee, mild and cooling now, holds everyone. The coals glow like sleepy eyes now, barely clinging to their heat. But even as the flames retreat, the stories are just beginning to stretch their legs. Someone tosses a few dried twigs into the hearth, not to reignite, just to stir a little extra warmth while the evening cools. You shift again. On the woven mat, noticing how your legs have molded to its gentle ridges. There's comfort in this grounded ache, in sitting low to the earth while the world outside slowly loses color to twilight. A boy walks past you holding 2 clay cups and a folded piece of flatbread, stuffed with spiced lentils, and you realize you're still hungry for something. Maybe not food, just more. And more is coming. Because now it's time for the talk. With the 3 rounds of coffee complete, the room enters a softer phase, a sort of shared dream space where the ordinary lines of conversation slip a little. The words get a bit hazier, the silences feel fuller. You notice the tone shift as the villagers begin talking about nobility, not in anger or awe, but with a kind of dry amusement, the way you might talk about a neighbor's fancy donkey cart. That keeps losing its wheels. "Did you hear?" One woman says with the serenity of someone about to stir the pot, "that the prince's cousin tried to roast beans last week." Someone gasps. Someone else groans. Another just shakes their head slowly, like a priest witnessing someone try to bless soup. He used wet wood. Mouths drop open and pretend horror. "Not acacia?" asks the grandmother with the gold-threaded shawl. "He said fig wood made the coffee. Fruity." Gasps turn into actual laughter now, slow, rolling, delicious dot. This is how royalty is roasted here, with a grin, a raised eyebrow, and a little extra cinnamon in the gossip pot. Historians still debate how connected rural coffee ceremonies like this one were to the royal courts of medieval Ethiopia. Did nobles attend them regularly? Were they replicated in more opulent forms behind palace walls? Or did the rituals live mostly among the villagers, observed with a kind of sacred informality that didn't need royal approval? No one knows for sure. But what's clear, at least to you right now, is that these humble gatherings are rich in another kind of power. The power to gently mock authority without starting a rebellion. The power to process news like you're straining tea leaves, slowly, with care. The old man who introduced you to the forest plants himself by the fire now, elbows on knees, a thin smile tugging at his lips. You want real drama? He says. I remember the time the king's messenger came to our village. Demanded coffee like it was his birthright. The room leans in. He took one sip, just one, and called it two. Strong. A collective wince. You'd think he said he preferred lukewarm rainwater. What did you do? Asks a girl from the back. We gave him milk, the old man says, eyes twinkling. More laughter. You didn't. We did. Goat milk. Sour. Thick. And we told him it was a royal tradition. You're not sure if the story is true. It doesn't matter. It has now become true enough. Someone fans the smoke away with a folded leaf, and another begins describing a noble's dream she heard about secondhand, of course. She dreamt of fireflies spelling her name in the trees. It means good harvest, the speaker insists. Or worms in the barley. Someone mutters. A soft thwop from the broom girl. These stories slip easily from tongue to tongue, much like the third round of coffee that still lingers in everyone's bellies, gentle, warming, a little diluted, but more meaningful for it. You hear murmurs of lineage now. Of who married whom. Of which family owns the good land with the thick tree shade. And which uncle might be the reason the goats won't enter the north path anymore. I heard they married off Tay's daughter because she roasted too well, says one woman. Everyone turns to her. She roasted so well, the boy thought she was enchanted. Said he'd never tasted coffee that tasted like honey and thunder. Honey and thunder? The others echo. Delighted. She nods. He proposed on the spot. Right there, after the tone around. Of course he did. There's a long-standing belief, still whispered among the older generations, that a well-roasted coffee can reveal the soul. That the way someone prepares, pours, and serves the drink reflects not just their mood, but their honesty, their patience, and their readiness for companionship. That's why noble families sometimes sent coffee spies to observe prospective brides sitting silently through a jabina session to see if she burned the beans or skipped the prayer or, heaven forbid, added the water before the roast cooled. You sip quietly, eyes half-lidded, imagining a clandestine operation of medieval Ethiopian spies crouched in doorways, sniffing for cinnamon and scandal. In the distance, a hyena howls, not the eerie cackle of legend, but a drawn-out yawn that says even the wild things are beginning to settle. You can smell the night now. Damp leaves, the faint sourness of cooling ash, the always there trace of coffee on fingertips and lips. The gossip somehow becomes lullaby. I heard her new husband doesn't even like coffee. No, she still married him. He'll learn, or he'll starve. And just like that, the room sighs together. No one moves much. No one wants to break the spell. A dog curls up beside the door, nose twitching. You lean back, hands behind you, the ground cool beneath your fingers. You realize something. The nobility. They're talking about the princes and cousins and judges and chiefs. They're just side characters here. The real royalty are the women with steady hands and smoke-smooth voices. The grandmothers who can tell if a storm's coming by how fast the pot boils. The uncles who joke through their shame. And the children who know more than they let on. In this circle, in this firelight, in this moment, you're safe. You're known. Or at least you're allowed to pretend. And somewhere outside, beneath the wild coffee trees, a goat probably just knocked over a pot. Again. The stars have shown up now, reluctant, but steady, peeking through a sky still smeared with the last smudges of sunset. The tukul feels more like a cocoon than a room. You're warmed not just by fire or the lingering trace of bareka on your tongue, but by the soft murmur of overlapping stories and the flickers of shared laughter that keep the night gently glowing. Your legs have stopped complaining. You're back. leans into a woven cushion that smells like frankincense and very old rain. And just as you think the evening might be winding down, a woman near the fire one, with a voice like worn velvet, asks, "Did I ever tell you what the rooster overheard?" The room leans in, of course. No one says no to that. You've already met this rooster, or his spiritual cousin, the judgmental little creature who loiters at the doorway, like he's waiting to catch someone sinning in real time. But this story is about his predecessor. This was years ago, she begins, cracking a roasted barley kernel between her fingers. Back when Sergei still had teeth and goats still feared the gate. Sergei nods sagely. He does not smile. The room ripples with contained amusement. The rooster, we called him Mediku, used to perch on the fence near the well. Every morning, same spot, same pose, head tilted like he was listening to the secrets the wind didn't carry fast enough. And one day, she continues, Mediku overhears something. A little whisper between Wubit and Desta while they were drawing. Water. Your ears perk up. Even you know those names by now. Local legends, apparently. Wubit, the clever herbalist with a memory for other people's love lives. Desta, her bashful sister who couldn't keep a secret if it were buried under a fig tree. They were talking about a dream, the storyteller says. But not just any dream, a shared dream. Gasps ripple, not dramatic ones, but sleepy and delighted. The kind of gasp you make when a loaf of bread is warm and breaks open just right. Both sisters dreamed of the same man, she says, but from opposite sides of the village. One woman drops her jaw and whispers, not opposite sides. Yes, the storyteller confirms, West Stream and East Ridge. Same man, both dreams, same night. Someone lets out a tiny whistle. Another mutters, he must have been very tall. And here's where Mediku comes in, she says, sitting up straighter, the fire painting warm light across her cheeks. Because the very next morning, after their dream-sharing session, Wubit finds Mediku staring at her. Just staring. Like he knows, the room is wrapped now. Even the broom girl has stopped pretending to sweep, and that afternoon, Mediku flies, not walks to Desta's gate. Sits there, all day. A man chuckles. Rooster matchmaking. Or rooster meddling, someone counters. They say Mediku chose, the storyteller concludes. That same evening, he returned to Wubit's fence, crowed once, and never. Visited Desta again, a beat. Then someone says, and who did the man choose? The woman just smiles. Neither. He married a potter from the next village over. The room laughs, not a belly laugh, but one of those head-tilting, side-smiling, gently exhausted chuckles that echo more like a purr. You sip what's left in your cup. It's room temperature now, but still carries the ghost of ginger and smoke. You wonder if the rooster really knew, or if the villagers wove the story afterward to explain away the inevitable mystery of unshared affection. Historians still argue whether these kinds of folklore tales had moral lessons, coded social advice, or were simply what happened when humans and animals stared at each other for too long near an open flame. You'd vote for all of the above. Outside, you hear a rustle, a few low hoots. An owl, maybe, or someone walking carefully through dry leaves. The tukul remains warm and unmoved. A little island in a sea of hush. Now someone else starts speaking, not loudly, not dramatically, but with the casual rhythm of someone peeling a fruit in their mind. My aunt used to say that roosters remember every secret they hear. That's why they crow at dawn. It's not to wake the world, it's to unburden themselves. You smirk into your cup. That explains a lot. Another voice chimes in. That's why I only talk secrets after dark. No birds, no rats. Just coffee and trusted company. The stories turn now slowly, like the tide. Still animal-based, but less silly. One woman tells of a snake who led a traveler home through fog by humming. Another describes a cow who refused to eat unless her owners reconciled after an argument. You suspect exaggeration, but no one here demands realism. Not tonight, you remember. How earlier someone said fig wood made coffee wise. You feel that now not in your brain, but in your ribs. In the way your breath matches the rhythm of the voices around you. The way you've stopped checking how long you've been. Sitting here, there's no rush. No clock. Just the slow burn of the evening's aftertaste. Then, almost as if summoned, the rooster at the doorway flutters his wings and makes a quiet noise, more murmur than crow. A single irk sound. Not quite disapproval. Not quite applause, medicus. Descendant, someone mutters with a grin. He probably heard us. Another whispers. Good, the storyteller says. Let him carry it forward. Because here, gossip isn't poison, it's preservation. A way of saying, we remember you, even if the history books don't. Even if your only legacy is the way your coffee smelled, or how many goats you lost, or whether a rooster stared too. Long at your shoes, you shift your legs one more time, now reluctant to move at all. You're no longer just an observer. You're part of the ceremony's memory. A soft voice in the background hum of the village night. And as the last of the stories dissolve into the hum of insects and the hush of shared sleepiness, someone whispers, tomorrow the rooster will know everything we said. And nobody seems too worried about it. The stars above have organized themselves into a loose, smug constellation, as if they too are enjoying the aftertaste of the last round of coffee and the story of a matchmaking rooster. You shift slightly, brushing a hand against the packed earth beside you, still warm where the fire once glowed bright. The embers now pulse faintly like the heartbeat of a content village. You'd think this would be the end of the evening, but you'd be wrong. Because just when the stories seem to be winding down, a slow but unmistakable rustling begins. Not dramatic, not urgent, just the familiar sound of movement with intention. Someone is reaching for the wooden box. Yes. It's time for the herbs. The woman in charge tonight, her name is Maretu, and she has the posture of someone who always knows where her goats are. Lifts the lid on a carved cedar box and reveals a treasure trove of dried herbs, seeds, and roots that could probably cure heartbreak, indigestion, and bad reputations if applied with the right dosage. One of the men scoots closer, sniffing theatrically. Cardamom? He asks. Maretu nods, but then pinches something else between her fingers. It's small, spiky, and smells like lemon and thunder. No, she says, tenadam for dreams. Tenadam rue is one of those herbs with a rhizome. Part spice, part spiritual safeguard, part mosquito repellent, and occasional wedding ruiner if burned too close to the bride. Maretu tosses a pinch of it into the still warm jabina, adding it to the dregs of the baraka round like she's enhancing the spell. You've never had spiced coffee before. At least not like this. Starbucks never once offered ancestral dream blend with protective undertones. Shame, really. The fragrance changes immediately. Deeper, more curious. The cardamom hits your sinuses like a whisper from someone who knows your secrets. The rue is sharp and unpredictable, like a cat deciding whether to sit on your lap or curse your sandals. You're handed a fresh clay cup. Smaller than before, smoother, almost reverent in its simplicity. This is the optional round, you realize. Not one of the three formal ones. This is the experimental encore, the round that changes with the night's mood. A liquid lullaby or a gentle dare. You take a sip. It's unlike the others. Softer floral, like someone ground up sunlight in. strained it through a forest. There's a flicker of ginger, a breath of wild basil. You hear yourself sigh. This is the round where conversation turns to dreams. Not the scandalous ones whispered at the well, but the slippery, half-remembered ones that come just before waking. My uncle used to drink rue before sleeping. One woman said it let him talk to his mother again. A boy across the room says nothing but holds his cup tighter. Once, Maritu says, I added cinnamon bark to the brew and dreamed I was flying over Lalibela. The stone churches looked like puzzle pieces. Someone adds, I once added too much basil. Dreamed I turned into a goat. Polite pause. Wasn't a bad dream. They clarify. Historians still debate the exact medicinal or spiritual properties of the herbs, traditionally added to Ethiopian coffee brews. Were they flavor agents, health boosters, or spiritual conductors? Some texts suggest they were protective, used to drive out bad spirits or balance the humors. Others say it was simply about taste. But here, in this room, it's both. Everything is flavor and story. Nothing exists without its whispering twin. You sip again, and Maritu leans over. Careful, she says with a smirk. If you dream of fire, don't tell anyone till the next sunrise. Or someone might fall in love with you. You nod as if. That's a normal sentence. Someone else mutters, or trip in a latrine. It's a gamble. The jokes roll in softly like waves on a night lake. You don't catch all of them, but the rhythm is unmistakable. There's a comfort in being slightly out of step, like learning a dance just by sitting near the music. Suddenly, the girl with the broom, yes, she's still there, pulls out a bundle of mint leaves wrapped in a strip of woven fabric. She hands it to Maritu with a shy flourish. For your next brew, she says, then adds, it grew near the East Ridge. The bees like it. Maritu takes it with the same reverence she'd show a holy relic. She knows better than to ignore a gift from the bees. Outside, the air shifts. You can hear the trees settling into their nighttime pose. A small breeze carries the sound of distant drumming, barely audible, more felt than heard. Someone has lit a thin coil of incense. It smells like sandalwood and smoke and something vaguely mathematical. You lean back. You close your eyes for a moment. You could fall asleep here, easily, if it weren't for the slight fizz in your veins from the herbs and the coffee and the laughter, still humming around you. You open your eyes just in time to see someone adding a splash of tej honey. Wine to their cup of spiced brew. The room watches. A collective inhale. That, someone says, is either brilliance or blasphemy. The man shrugs. Both taste the same. They let him sip. He makes a face like someone who just unlocked a new level of existence. You glance around the room again. These people, most of them strangers, now feel like the cast of a dream you don't want to leave. Each with their own laugh, their own cup, their own herb preference. You haven't even asked anyone's name. Somehow that feels rude, like waking someone mid-nap. The stories trail off again. The smoke coils. The rooster murmurs in his sleep. And then Maritu says, tomorrow we'll try coriander. Someone groans, but it's affectionate. Your cup is nearly empty, and for once, you don't want to refill. You just want to sit. To let the herbs do their quiet work. To be carried, not caffeinated. And perhaps, if you're lucky, dream of flying over stone churches, or at least not turning into a goat. The fire is just a memory now, reduced to a sleepy glow nestled in a bed of ash. A single coal pulses with a kind of stubborn dignity, refusing to let the night have the final word. Around it, the circle of people leans closer, not for warmth, but for the stories that only come out when the shadows get long and the coffee's grip begins to loosen. That's when a new voice chimes in, a man wrapped in a travel-worn shawl. with skin like carved cedar and a voice that arrives with a smile already folded inside it. I once crossed the Ogaden with a sack of beans and a lie. He begins. Everyone turns, because this is no ordinary village uncle. This is a merchanta, coffee trader from down south, the kind of person who walks for weeks, sleeps under stars, and claims to have seen monkeys reciting scripture. His name is Weko, and his beard seems to hold entire landscapes. He loosens his scarf, settles in, and pours himself a little of this spiced leftover brew. I've seen what coffee does to men, he says. It wakes them, yes, but it also reveals them. You're immediately hooked. You're not alone. He begins to tell the story of how coffee first left Kaffa, not through royal decree or church edict, but in the folds of a merchant's tunic, stitched tight and tucked between dates and dried fish. He speaks of Harur, where the beans met their first foreign palate, of traders whispering about the black drink that made old men sing and young ones stay up praying till dawn, of skeptical imams who banned it, then quietly requested another cup. Mecca was the real battleground, Wako says. Beautiful city, holy ground, but easily startled. Historians still argue whether coffee was officially banned in Mecca in the early 16th century or merely frowned upon by certain clerics. What's not up for debate is that the drink caused a stir, not because it was intoxicating, but because it made people think. And worse, it made them gather. Wakiwo grins. Too many men staying up at night, debating verses, laughing too loud, making friends with strangers. He sips from his cup. That's dangerous. You can feel the room shift around him. There's something about the way he speaks like he's tasted too many cities to be surprised anymore. In Aden, he continues, they tried to grow it, but the soil rebelled. In Cairo, it was medicine. In Istanbul, it was currency. And in Venice, he raises his eyebrows. They boiled it too long. A snort from the corner. Of course they did. But it all began here, he says, gesturing lazily to the hut, the embers, the scent of cardamom still hanging in the air, with women roasting beans and men trying not to look too impressed, with roosters eavesdropping, with silence broken only by the hiss of steam and the clink of cup to lip. Someone asks, what's the farthest the beans have traveled? Wako leans back, scratches his beard, and replies, farther than my patience, not as far as my pride. Which is to say far, but not far enough. You're pulled into his stories effortlessly. He speaks of a port town where coffee was traded for salt, which was traded for incense, which was traded for silks that were never worn, but always admired. He tells of a camel caravan that lost its way and survived 3 extra days by chewing roasted beans, bitter, dry, and life-saving. He tells of a Sufi mystic in Yemen who drank coffee to stay awake during night prayers and claimed the drink helped him hear the voice of God more clearly, or at least made him more polite to his neighbors. You glance around the room. No one is fidgeting. No one is checking the stars for the hour. Everyone is wrapped in the spell of this man's voice, the slow spiral of his narrative. There's something profoundly soothing about the idea of coffee as a traveler. Not just in bags or baskets, but in stories, in flavors picked up like hitchhikers. Along the trade routes, Wako reaches into his satchel and pulls out a tiny pouch. He opens it and lets a few pale yellowish beans fall into his palm. This, he says, is coffee grown near the sea. Too much salt in the wind. It smells like regret, laughter. He passes one to you. You sniff it. It does, in fact, smell a little like old socks and bad decisions. But there's something endearing about it, too. Not every bean is blessed, he shrugs. Some just want to stay home. Another pause. Another slow sip. Then someone finally asks the question no one's dared so far. Do you trade in secrets? 2. Wacko smiles. Only the ones people leave in empty cups. It's a good answer. Maybe even true. And just like that, the mood shifts again. The room softens. The stories settle. You look at the sack of beans Wacko brought in. They smell faintly of cumin and camel sweat and promise. Somewhere in that bag is the future. Coffee houses. In Cairo, poets in Damascus. Revolutions in Paris. Breakups in Brooklyn. But right now, it's just a warm scent in a quiet hut in Kaffa. A whisper of what's to come. The merchant leans forward. "I'll be gone in the morning," he says. "But tonight I'm staying here, with the ones who remember where the beans first learned to speak." You smile, cup in hand, feeling the night stretch around you like a cloak. And somewhere outside, the stars lean in closer. They want to hear the next story too. The stars are pinned high now, unblinking, like an ancient audience that's seen this ritual play out 1,000 times before. The fire is no more than a memory, a soft ring of warmth in the air, and a faint smell of charred wood still clinging to the woven mats. Around you, the night holds stillness like a treasured object, polished and quiet. You hear the gentle clink of a clay cup settling into a shallow dish. That, apparently, is the sound that summons the next round of storytelling, because now the women near the far wall begin to stir. One of them, an elder wrapped in layers of indigo cloth so dark it nearly swallows the light, reaches into a pouch at her side and produces something unexpected. A small bundle of dried leaves tied with twine. With a motion born of countless repetitions, she unties the bundle and lets the leaves flutter out into a shallow bowl. "Tonight," she says, "we add besobila, wild Ethiopian basil dot, not the kind that goes on pizza. No, this one smells like crushed hope and good dreams. A little floral, a little peppery, and entirely unpredictable." She crumbles the brittle leaves gently into the still warm jabina, which someone has refilled once again with water and coffee grounds that somehow aren't quite exhausted yet, you might think. By now, the brew would be weak. But this is the surprise of the ceremony. Each round changes, not just in strength, but in character. This one is no longer about energy or gossip or dreams. This one is medicinal, purifying, the village's own sleepy little pharmacy in a clay pot. The elder stirs the mixture with a slender twig, and you notice how reverently the others are watching her. This isn't just about herbs. This is about memory. She's the keeper of 100 combinations. Which plants go with which moods, which to avoid after too much barley, which chase away fevers or heartbreak or restless sleep. Historians still puzzle over the sheer variety of herbs blended into traditional Ethiopian coffee ceremonies across different regions. Some argue it's spiritual. Others say it's folk medicine disguised as hospitality. But here in this room, it feels like something else entirely, an alchemy of comfort. A way to stir a little more life into the cup when the night begins to slow. The first sips of the basil brew are cautious. Everyone listens to the flavor like it might be speaking. You take yours. It's subtle, earthy, but delicate. The coffee is softer now, more rounded. The basil offers a barely there hum, like the sound of bees from 2 fields away. It tastes like the idea of sleep preparing to arrive. A boy near the door mutters, "This is the one that makes you dream of water." Someone else adds, "Last time I saw a river I haven't crossed since childhood." And just like that, the theme of the hour is chosen, water dreams. The stories trickle in, slow and steady. One man describes a dream of a lake so wide the stars fell into it and disappeared. Another says she dreamed she followed a spring into a cave and found her own name etched on the walls. Someone else claims they dreamt of drinking from a fountain that only existed on Tuesdays. You try to remember, Your last dream involving water, was it a bath? A storm? That time you accidentally walked into the ocean with your shoes on? Nothing comes. But you sip again anyway, hoping the basil will coax something up from the well. Then comes a story that hushes the room. An older woman, who's been silent all evening, finally speaks. I once dreamed I was a fish, she says, simply. Not just in water, but of water. Breathing without lungs. Remembering things I've never done. I saw my mother's wedding. My granddaughter's birth, a time before there were goats. The others murmur, not in disbelief but in awe. I woke up. Crying, she says, but I didn't know why. No one asks her to explain. They simply let the image settle around them, like the scent of basil rising from the cups. You find yourself staring into your own brew now, wondering if a leaf of bisubilla floats somewhere near the surface, holding a secret just for you. Outside, something shifts. The breeze changes direction. The smell of wet soil returns, mingling with the herbal steam. A teenager speaks up, trying not to sound too eager. Is it true you can brew with neck shinkert? White garlic. A few chuckles ripple through the group. Only if you want to meet your ancestors early, someone says, but the elder doesn't dismiss the question. She nods slowly. Garlic's for the mornings after heartbreak, she says. Not for dreams, for recovery. A few knowing sighs. One man nods a little too emphatically. The garlic talk fades into other herbs, some rare, some forbidden, some simply too difficult to dry properly. A few names swirl around. Tena Adam, Damakis, Kosaret. Each with their own backstory. Each with a flavor that carries a family tale, a buried insult, or a buried love letter. You realize that coffee here is not just a beverage, it's a map. Each addition, whether rue or basil or heaven forbid, garlic is a trail marker pointing to a specific mood, a moment, a lesson. It makes you wonder, what would your blend be? A little mint for clarity, ginger for courage, a pinch of basil for memories you didn't know you had. Someone adds a final note. You shouldn't drink the basil round on a Wednesday. That's when the river spirits listen. No one questions it. You feel your eyes getting heavier, not with fatigue, but with something else. A fullness. Like you've eaten a big bowl of stories and washed it down with bittersweet dreams. Elder lifts her cup. Everyone follows. To water, she says. And whatever it remembers. You sip, you sigh. And for just a second, you swear you taste the ocean. There's a different kind of quiet now, deeper, thicker, as if the very walls of the tukul are holding their breath. The fire is out. The cups are nearly dry. Most of the village seems asleep, but this circle lingers like the tail end of a lullaby that doesn't want to be forgotten. Just when you think the night can't offer another surprise, the flap of the tukul stirs and someone steps in. A man with dusty robes, a soft leather satchel, and an attitude that says he's been awake longer than anyone should be. His face is tired but amused, like someone who's just walked away from a camel argument and won. The room perks up. A few raise their brows. A child quietly claps once. Biftu's back, someone whispers. You learn quickly. Biftu is a traveling merchant, storyteller, part-time exaggerator, and self-declared friend of every person he's ever met, including, apparently, a monkey in Gondar and a prince in Zela. Whether that's true is no longer important. Smells like ruin here, Biftu says, dropping his satchel with a theatrical grunt. Good. That means you're ready for the story. He doesn't wait for permission. He never does. With the weary dramatics of a man who both loves and loathes his own tale, Biftu launches into it. I was in Harar last month. The market was full. Everyone buying spices, Everyone arguing about dates, not the fruit, the calendar. A few polite chuckles. I was there to trade coffee. Good beans, not fancy ones. Honest, hard-working beans. The kind that survive rain, mudslides, and jealous neighbors. He opens his satchel, pulls out a handful of beans, and tosses them on the mat. You can smell them from here, earthy, sharp, with a touch of citrus. These, he says, almost didn't make it. The room. Leans in. Biftu grins. He's got you. He tells the story of how the beans came from a remote village along the Shebel River, where the soil is red and the winds argue in 3 languages. He speaks of smugglers, dishonest porters, and one particularly aggressive chicken that stole his sandal mid-journey. Had to hop for 2 days, he says, sipping from someone's cup uninvited. Not good for my dignity, but excellent for leg strength. Then he gets to the good part. I cross the desert. Alone, foolishly, no caravan. Just me, 3 goats, and a bag of beans. And halfway through, I'm stopped by a man in white robes, face covered, eyes like polished obsidian. A few people glance at each other. Some smile knowingly. He asks, "What's in the sack?" I tell him, "Coffee." He says that's forbidden here. Dramatic pause. So I ask why. The mysterious man responds, "Because it makes men question the world, and we like our world unquestioned." Biftu shakes his head. Imagine fearing a bean. Historians still argue whether such bans on coffee ever truly extended into the Ethiopian heartland, or whether these tales are just echoes of similar bans in Yemen and Mecca. Either way, the idea of dangerous coffee has become folklore, a way of showing how something so small could rattle so much. Biftu continues, I told him, this coffee helps grandmothers tell stories. It makes chicken smarter. It saved me from a hyena once. He grins. He didn't believe me, but he let me pass. How? Someone asks. Biftu reaches into his bag again and pulls out a folded strip of cloth. He unwraps it carefully to reveal a tiny carved cup. I gave him this, he says. Traded a single cup for my passage. He took it like it was gold. It's small, delicate, with faint designs scratched into its surface leaves. Birds, maybe even a lion or two. The room murmurs with approval. The cup is passed gently from hand to hand. You hold it for a moment. It's surprisingly heavy for its size. You imagine that stranger on the road, cupping this same piece in his hand, wondering whether to fear or drink from it. And so, Biftu concludes, stretching his arms behind his head. The beans made it. They're with me now. And tomorrow, I'll trade them in Jimma for salt and sassafras, and maybe a pair of sandals that aren't haunted. Someone passes him a cup newly brewed, warm, spicy. Probably spiked with cinnamon for extra hospitality. He sips, smacks his lips, and nods. You roast well, he says to Maritu. Better than last year. Your beans are drier, she replies. Hard to ruin bad beans. Laughter rolls around the circle. Not mean, just familiar, the rooster grumbles. From his perch, the stars blink overhead. Biftu's tail settles in like a blanket. Another thread in the fabric. Another chapter in the coffee's journey, not just through rivers and deserts, but through hearts and homes. You lean back, cup in hand, and take another sip. It's not just a drink anymore. It's a passport. Night has softened its edges now, stretching like an old cat across the floor of the tukul. The embers have gone fully dark. There's no more firelight to cast shadows, only the occasional flicker of starlight sneaking through the thatched gaps in the roof. But the stories haven't ended. In fact, the next one doesn't come from a traveling merchant or a grandmother. Steeped in basil wisdom, it starts with a glance, a quiet one, and a sugar bowl. You barely notice it at first. A clay bowl, half full of large, unrefined sugar crystals, passed silently from hand to hand. But when it lands between a young man and a young woman sitting across from each other, the room shifts. Just slightly. No one says anything. But eyes, suddenly, are watching. He pushes the bowl toward her with exactly one knuckle. She, without glancing up, takes a single crystal and presses it gently to the rim of her cup before stirring. The sugar dissolves slowly. Someone clears their throat with deliberate subtlety. Welcome to Courtship Coffee Ceremony Edition. You've heard whispers of this part. Hidden rituals inside rituals. Unspoken language where sugar becomes signal. Where the placement of a cup is more charged than a love letter. Where a glance over steam is as dangerous as a poem read aloud. The older women pretend not to look, which of course means they're observing everything. The older men sip slowly, watching their own pasts replay in sugar-sweetened glances. He takes a sip. She doesn't. She waits. He sets his cup down closer to her than necessary. She takes another sugar crystal. This time she lets it rest on her tongue before drinking. You're not sure what that means exactly, but the broom girl quietly mouths, "That's a yes," in your direction. Historians still debate the role of the coffee ceremony in romantic courtship. Some suggest it was simply background to the real negotiations, land, livestock, lineage. But in living memory, and certainly in this room, coffee has been both love potion and love test. A space for suggestion, silence, and simmering hopes. She added 2 sugars, someone whispers. You think it's for him? It better not be for her cousin. It turns out there's an entire language here. Not just in sugar, but in everything. Cup position. Closer to the mat's edge? You're open to visitors. Facing the door? You're distracted. Tilted slightly left? Someone's trying to get your attention. Pouring technique. A smooth, unbroken stream? You're confident. A nervous, sputtering drizzle? Your hands and heart might not be ready. Serving order. If you pour for them first before even the elders? Oh, everyone notices this couple, or maybe almost couple clearly, knows the rules. Or at least how to dance around them. She offers him the incense burner. He waves it away, but with a smile. That's a not yet, someone mutters. But not a no. The room is quiet now. Not from disinterest, but from intense, thrilled observance. Everyone is pretending not to notice the world's softest flirtation playing out over warm clay. Cups and glistening sugar. Even the rooster has gone still, and then just as slowly and deliberately as the first gesture, he shifts his cup closer to her. She shifts hers too. Now they're nearly touching. Gasps? No. Too obvious. Just one long, drawn-out sigh from a grandmother who looks far too pleased. And with that, the tension releases. Laughter bubbles up gently, rolling through the room like wind through tall grass. Someone passes a bowl of roasted barley. Someone else offers a fresh pot of slightly spiced brew. The moment isn't broken. It's honored, sealed. Not official, of course, but acknowledged. That's enough. You sip again and realize this too is part of the ceremony. Not just the drinking, but the watching, the witnessing, the understanding that the cup holds more than just coffee. It holds intent. And sometimes, affection. Someone tells a story about a couple who first met over baraka and were married by the next market day. Someone else tells one about a woman who drank tono while side-eyeing the wrong man and ended up with a jealous goat for a year. These aren't warnings. They're reminders. Love, like coffee, works best when brewed slowly, carefully, with a little smoke, a little patience, and exactly the right balance of sugar and nerve. You glance again at the couple. She's smiling, now just barely. He picks up her cup and refills it without a word. No one claps. That would be too obvious. Instead, the room lets out one of those collective sighs that means something good has happened. and everyone agrees to keep it quiet, and also definitely tell everyone they know by morning. And you? You're sipping the same coffee, but it tastes different now. Sweeter, warmer, full of the kind of hope that doesn't need a name. Just a cup, a glance, and maybe 2 sugar crystals left to melt in the bottom. The rooster has finally gone silent. Not asleep, he's far too committed to his role as neighborhood sentinel, but content, nestled somewhere outside in the brush, his feathers puffed up like a pillow against the cool night air. Inside the tucal, the energy has shifted once more. The laughter has faded into murmurs. The lovers, or maybe lovers, have settled into the quiet companionship of cups that are no longer full but still warm. A few people stretch their legs. Someone snores gently in the corner, entirely unbo to here did that then, softly, like smoke slipping. Under a door, a chant begins. You don't know where it comes from at first. It's low, round, and draped in rhythm. A syllable repeated like footsteps on wet earth. Then another joins. And another. You follow the sound to the far side of the room, where a man in a patched brown cloak is sitting, cross-legged with his eyes closed and his hands resting loosely on his knees. He's not chanting to be heard. He's chanting to keep time with something inside himself. You realize he's a Sufi, and now it's his turn to pour. The clay pot is still warm. The herbs still linger in the corners. But the Sufi's preparation is a little different. Less ceremonial in appearance, but somehow even more deliberate. He doesn't measure or weigh. He doesn't time the brew or count the steps. He just knows. The aroma that wafts up is darker, deeper, spiked with hints of clove and whispers of night wind. He offers no explanation, no interpretation. Only a cup. You accept it. You sip. And immediately understand why this round feels different. This is Dicker coffee, meditative coffee. The kind brewed not for the body or the mind, but for the soul's quiet turning. The Sufi continues chanting softly, his voice threading between sips, his words blending with the creak of the tucal, the hum of crickets, and the faint rustle of someone rearranging a blanket in the dark. He doesn't preach. He doesn't explain. He just repeats a few lines over and over. La ilaha illallah. There's no God but God. The rhythm is everything. It's the pulse of the beans as they boil, the breath of the night, the spaces between each heartbeat that somehow feel louder than the heart itself. Historians still study the role of Sufi orders in the spread of coffee through the Islamic world. Some argue Sufis were the earliest champions of the drink, using it to sustain long hours of prayer and meditation. Others claim they simply recognized what villagers had always known. Coffee keeps the eyes open, but more importantly, it can soften the walls between worlds. Here, now, in this hut wrapped in darkness and cedar smoke, that theory feels absolutely correct. The Sufi speaks now, just above a whisper. When I drink coffee, he says, I don't wake up. I settle down. The rest of the world gets quiet. The distractions step outside. What's left is what I need to hear. A woman next to him nods. And what if what you hear is your own doubt? He smiles, eyes still closed. Then I offer it a cup too. You take another sip. The clove lingers. There's something grounding about it. You feel as though the soles of your feet are pressing into ancient soil. The Sufi opens one eye barely. You think it's about the caffeine, he says. It's never about the caffeine. Someone asks, and what's it really about? He considers for a moment, then replies, permission. Permission to stay awake. Permission to slow down. There's a hush, even deeper than before. And just when you think this might be the quietest part of the night, the Sufi begins, tapping a rhythm on the side of his cup. Just fingertips. Just enough to give the silence a spine, Another person joins in, tapping their knee. Then another, drumming softly on a woven basket. The rhythm spreads like moss. It doesn't crescendo. It doesn't speed up. It just is. A heartbeat made of fingers. And patience and coffee-soaked reflection. You tap too softly. Your pulse matches theirs. And for a moment, you're not in a hut in the Ethiopian highlands. You're floating somewhere between stars and soil, between wakefulness and something even slower. A boy nearby begins humming a different melody than the chant, but not in conflict. Somehow, it braids with the rhythm, slipping between the finger taps. Like thread through a loom. The Sufi finally opens both eyes. He raises his cup. May your next dream be truthful, he says. And everyone drinks. You sip again. The flavor is cooling now, tinged with memory. The clove has mellowed. The coffee has released its grip. What's left is the warmth in your throat, the drumbeat in your palm, and the knowledge that nothing has been rushed tonight. Everything has arrived when it was ready, even this moment, even you. The night has fully bloomed now, quiet, sprawling, stitched with stars and the sleepy chirr of insects. The air inside the tukul is warm and drowsy, scented faintly with smoke, clove, and the last ghost of basil. Most people have gone still. Some drift in and out of sleep like boats on a gentle tide. A few sit with their cups half raised, content to hold the warmth without sipping. And then, of course, comes the goat. It enters the scene exactly as you might expect, without permission, with no regard for the sacred silence, and dragging a bit of shredded rope behind it like a badge of honor. It pauses at the doorway, blinks once, and trots in. You'd think this would be a disaster. But no one seems surprised. Someone even scoots over to make space. A child tosses it a bit of injera. The goat accepts the offering, then proceeds to sniff every cup it can reach. This is not just any goat. This is Whoosh's goat. And that means you're about to hear the story of the one with the goat theft. That begins, as many tales do, with someone muttering, "I still say he stole it." Laughter, soft and restrained. Whoosha himself, an older man with a beard shaped like a broom caught in the rain, raises one eyebrow but does not deny it. The storyteller, of course, it's Maretu again, leans forward slightly. Her voice lowers, like a merchant opening the lid of a forbidden spice jar. So 1 year ago, during the coffee harvest, she says, this goat disappeared. The goat bleats, clearly delighted to be the center of attention. Vanished, she continues. Gone, poof, not a bleat to be heard. Whoosha searched the whole village, blamed the river, blamed the wind, blamed me. I only asked if you'd seen it, Whoosha grumbles. You asked if I'd roasted it, she says sweetly. That's blame. The room chuckles. So there we are, goatless. And on the third day, who shows up at the north well? She pauses, the goat, wearing a new collar. Gasps, real ones this time. A collar made from dyed twine, she adds. The kind only one family uses. Guess who? Everyone turns to the accused, an unassuming man in a brown wrap with suspiciously clean sandals. I found him, he says, holding his hands up. He followed me. I shared my lunch. Your lunch was rosemary and banana peel, someone accuses. He liked it. More laughter. The goat bleats again, perhaps in protest, perhaps just for drama. But that's not the best part, Maretu continues. Because that night, we held a coffee ceremony to welcome the goat home. We made tona with extra cinnamon. The goat sat in the doorway like a prince. It crossed its legs, someone swears. And halfway through the second round, she says, pausing for effect, he proposed marriage. Gasps again. This time directed toward the man in brown. I did not propose because of the goat, he says quickly. Yes, you did, says the woman beside him. And I said yes because you brewed the strongest baraka I've ever tasted. The room laughs. Again, warm and rolling, like a wool blanket shaking out its creases. Historians still debate whether animal omens played a true role in village matchmaking across 14th century Ethiopia. But this village clearly doesn't wait for academic consensus. The goat is now a local celebrity, possibly divine. Definitely spoiled. It strolls now to the corner and begins nibbling the rim of an abandoned cup. Mare, too, raises her own mug and offers a toast. To the goat, she says. May he continue to wander and solve our romantic problems. The toast is echoed without irony. You drink too. The coffee has cooled to a dusky warmth, no longer sharp but mellow. It carries cinnamon and something softer, perhaps the humor of shared memory, or just the comfort of a well-loved anecdote repeated often and always welcome. Someone passes a plate of dried fruit and sweet roasted chickpeas. The goat tries to steal one and is politely nudged away. And then comes the final flourish, a song, not a planned one. Just a melody that rises out of the moment. It begins with one of the grandmothers humming a tune as old as the beans, older. Perhaps slow and looping like water, tracing the same stone again and again. Others join in. A second voice, higher. A third, weaving between them like thread through fabric. The goat lies down. The room leans in. The song has no words. Or maybe it has too many to choose from. It sounds like gratitude. Like rain on thatched roofs. Like firelight licking the edge of a kettle. It sounds like a sigh after a good story. And in the silence that follows, someone murmurs, "He did steal the goat." "No," Wusha says, smiling finally. "The goat chose him." You finish the last sip of your cup. Eyes heavier now. Heart full. You don't know if this story will stay with you forever. But you hope the goat will. And if you ever forget the details, well, you'll remember the laughter and the cinnamon. And the feeling of a night well stewed. The goat has fallen asleep. It lies near the threshold, one ear twitching occasionally, as if still eavesdropping on the room's warm glow of conversation. The last embers outside the tukul have given up, leaving the stars to handle the lighting now, which they do quite tastefully. Most of the room is silent, but that doesn't last long. A man scratches his beard, and says, "Let me tell you how I nearly caused a drought with one bad roast." Everyone perks up. You glance around. Nobody protests. Nobody stops him. This is the hour of sleepy confessionals, of whispered disasters and soft regrets, wrapped in punch-ines. The man, whose name is possibly Belit, though no one says it aloud, sits upright and looks around with the dramatic flair of someone who knows exactly how ridiculous the story is. "It was the new moon ceremony," he begins, "and I volunteered." There's a communal wince. He continues. The real coffee master had gotten stung by a bee and refused to brew while swollen. Said it would throw off his balance. So I stepped in. A low whistle cuts across the room. He nods solemnly. I was younger, arrogant, thought my beans were better than his. Picked them fresh, roasted them fast. Too fast. How fast? Ask someone. I built the fire with eucalyptus bark and dried cow dung, hot as jealousy. Had flames licking. The sight of the jabina before the grounds even landed. Laughter trickles in. I didn't wait. I didn't listen. I dumped the water too early, poured the first round too soon. It smelled like old boots and regret. Even the rooster lets out a strangled croak in his sleep. And then, Belit says, I served it to the council. Groans, someone puts a hand over their face. The head elder took one sip and coughed so hard his false tooth popped out. Did he drink the second round? Someone asks. Oh no, he made me drink it. That brings a wave of quiet, bubbling laughter. And here's the best part, Belly adds, raising a finger. Later that night, it didn't rain. A beat, and it didn't rain the next day. People shift. And the day after that, the river dropped 2 hands depth. Gasps. I had 3 people blame me personally for the river's attitude. You cursed the stream, someone whispers dramatically. Possibly. There's silence for a moment. Then Maritu leans in, a sly grin on her face. Did you apologize? I did. To the elder? No, Belit says. To the coffee. Now that gets nods of approval. Historians still discuss the symbolic weight of coffee. Ceremonies in pre-modern Ethiopia, how they weren't just social rituals, but deeply spiritual performances. If the brew was wrong, people didn't just say, needs more cardamom. They wondered what was unbalanced, who was angry, what unseen forces had been offended. Here, coffee isn't just a drink, it's a litmus test, a thermometer for the village soul. Brew it wrong, and it's like knocking on your ancestor's door with muddy feet. Belit sighs, rubbing the back of his neck. I waited a week before trying again. Did it rain? Eventually. Did the tooth get fixed? No, but he forgave me. The woman beside him chuckles. That's what happens when your roast burns the blessings out. You're struck by how even the failures here are folded into the ritual. There's no shame that lingers too long, only lessons. Laughed at, learned from, and roasted into the next cup. Someone starts listing other offenses. Remember, when Tisfei forgot to rinse the cups? Or when Hannah served the baraka round first? The day of 3 sugars. Someone cries, and the room groans as one. You're not sure what that means, but it sounds traumatic. They're not mocking each other. This is ritual maintenance, polishing the rough spots with laughter, preserving the ceremony by remembering its cracks. And now, as the air cools and the night leans toward dawn, someone quietly starts pouring one final round, not a formal one, not even a spicy encore. Just a small pot of gently reheated coffee, no herbs, no theatrics, just the taste of familiarity. You're handed a cup. It's not perfect. It's a little too bitter, a little overstirred. But no one says anything, because this round isn't about taste. It's about presence. Belit lifts his cup with mock ceremony and says, to bad roasts and better mornings. Everyone drinks, you do, too. And somehow, it's exactly what you need. The tukul is quieter now, not silent, but settled. Like a house that has breathed a long sigh and tucked itself in under the stars. Most of the cups are empty. A few are forgotten, in laps or beside pillows hastily fashioned from folded shawls. One man sleeps with a mug still balanced perfectly in his palm, as if even in dreams, he refuses to let go of the warmth. But you're still awake, lulled yet alert, drifting in that delicate state between dozing and listening. And good thing, too, because this part of the night belongs to the long goodbye. It starts with a single scrape of wood against earth, as someone stands up to stretch. That's all it takes. Someone murmurs, I suppose we should. But they don single quotes T. No one actually leaves after the long goodbye begins. They just prepare to leave. And that, in this village, is a much longer ritual than the coffee ceremony itself. A woman who's already wearing her sandals stops to refill someone's cup. A boy who has clearly fallen asleep twice reaches for another handful of roasted barley. And Maretu. She's back at the jebina, casually reheating what little remains at the bottom. Just to keep the chill off, she says, though no one asked. The long goodbye is not an ending, it's a decrescendo. A winding path with scenic detours. An accordion door that closes one fold at a time. You're offered one last cup, just a splash, not even half full. It tastes like ash in memory, and somehow that's perfect. You sip slowly. Everyone does. It's not about the flavor now. It's about drawing it out. Someone leans over and says, "Remember Lensa's wedding? The goodbye took 3 days." 2, someone corrects. No, 3. She had to roast again just for the people who came back. There's laughter, soft and knowing. Another man adds, "My cousin once tried to leave during the second round. Slipped out the back like a snake. What happened? His donkey refused to move." Laughter again, with a bit more gravel in it. Now people's voices are tired. Stretched like wool in the cold, but still warm. You can feel the circle fray at the edges. A couple of grandmothers nod off mid-story. Someone starts folding a shawl, with the urgency of a glacier. And yet, no one is truly leaving. Not yet. This is the part where snacks reappear. Bowls of toasted grain, bits of dried fig, slivers of flatbread that were hidden under scarves for just this purpose. Because if someone tries to say goodbye, you must counter with food. It's the rules. You bite into a piece of barley cake. It's dry and perfect, and tastes faintly of nutmeg and persistence. Someone asks what time it is. No. One answers, "Time is not part of the long goodbye." It's not about time. It's about people holding on to the last moments of closeness gently. Like cupping a small fire and trying not to burn themselves. Historians would say this is a cultural custom rooted in hospitality, rooted in centuries of pastoral life where distance and danger made every departure feel weighty. Villagers would say, "Why rush when there's still coffee?" The broom girl, whose eyes are now half-lidded but still watching everything, tugs your sleeve. "Don't go yet," she says. "They haven't sung the ending." You didn't even know there was an ending song. But apparently, there's. It starts. When the eldest woman, still awake, white hair, back like a question mark, begins humming a tune you haven't heard all night. It's not the lullaby from earlier. This one is different. Lower, slower. It dips and climbs gently, like someone walking home alone with no urgency and no path. One by one, others join in. Not in harmony, no one's aiming for perfection. Just presence. A layered farewell woven from throats half-cracked and hearts too full. There are no words, only sound. It's what you'd imagine the coffee itself might sing. If given a mouth, something a little bitter, mostly warm. Impossible to rush. And then finally movement. A man stands fully this time, really stands. He stretches, thanks Maretu, and places his cup gently on a flat stone. This is the true sign. Not the saying of goodbye, but the placing of the cup. That's how you signal it's time. One by one, others follow. The cups form a little ring, clay against clay, like a final toast offered to the night itself. And now people begin to leave. Slowly stretching, murmuring thanks. They shake hands. Some kiss cheeks, some press foreheads. No one walks quickly. Even those who need to be up in a few hours seem to linger at the doorway, as if waiting for one last reason to stay. You stand, your legs are stiff. Your heart is soft. Your mind is steeped like the final brew, darker, richer, and full of other people's stories. Someone places a hand on your shoulder. You turn. It's Maretu. She hands you a bean. Just one. Dark, roasted, slightly cracked. For your pocket, she says. So you don't forget. You tuck it away. Not that you'd forget, but it's nice to have proof. The doorway of the tukul frames. The night like a painting, ink black sky, a splash of stars, and the occasional flick of movement as villagers melt back into their homes. Shawls drawn up, sandals flapping softly on the packed earth. The long goodbye has reached its final note. You're the last one standing in the doorway now. The rooster has vanished, perhaps deciding that even his judgmental watch must rest. The goat, still curled in its corner, twitches once in its sleep, as if chasing an especially bold dream. Behind you the tukul is quiet. Cups are stacked, embers cooled. The jebina, still faintly warm, sits wrapped in cloth like a baby tucked in for a nap. The space feels smaller now, more sacred, its energy drained in the best possible way. Like a well-fed fire finally allowed to sleep. You step outside. The air greets you with a gentle kiss of coolness. Grass damp underfoot. The world smells of charcoal and dew, of things that will be remembered and things that can finally rest. You walk slowly, not toward anywhere in particular, just to feel the end of it all. Somewhere nearby, a frog chirps. Not urgently, just offering its opinion. Crickets keep time with their tiny fiddles. The world hasn't paused, but it has certainly slowed. And then, as if summoned by the silence itself, your mind drifts back to the coffee dot, not just the taste, the rhythm, the sequence, the ceremony. You remember the first round, bold, bright, unforgiving. Like a trumpet announcing, "You are here now, pay attention." You remember the second, smoother, richer, a space for secrets, for laughter barely hidden behind sleeves. Then the third, the blessing, the whisper, the soft place to land. And all that came after rue and basil, goat tailies and flirtations, Sufi chants and roasted regrets. Each round, each cup, became a door, gently opening to another part of the night, another layer of story. Historians might argue whether this entire experience was religious, social, medicinal, or something else entirely. But here, standing barefoot on dew-slick grass with your soul warmed to the edges, it feels like all of those at once. The stars overhead don't blink. They just listen, and you do, too. You hear the last bit of laughter still echoing in your ears, someone joking about acacia wood, someone else mumbling about the talking snake, and the softest voice of all wishing you a dream with no goats. You sit just for a moment, back against a low fence, the bean. Maredu gave you rest in your pocket, like a tiny ember dot. You take it out, roll it between your fingers. Still warm. Still holding everything. A breeze passes through the trees, and for a second, you imagine it carries the scent of ginger and cardamom, of rue and clove, of cracked laughter and sandalwood smoke sighs. This, you realize, is what the coffee remembers. Not the flavors, not the heat, but the holding, the space it made for everything else to arrive. And then, as your breathing slows and your eyes start to forget which stars are which, the breeze hushes even further, and the world tucks itself in around you. You close your eyes, just for a second, and the coffee carries you. Now as you drift even deeper into stillness, let the air around you settle like dust after a dance. Let your breath soften, slow, and stretch into something quieter than thought. There's no more story now. No more jokes to chase. No more cups to fill. Only the memory of a warm hand passing you something sacred, and the steady, gentle hush of a world where time has stepped aside. Let yourself float just a little, as if your body has grown too soft to hold you upright, and your thoughts too tender to stay in line. Let the moments of tonight blur, not forgotten, but gently packed away, like folded linens that carry the smell of fire and sweet herbs. That soft drumbeat you hear now, that's not a memory. That's your own pulse, settling in. Steady, present, tired in the best way. You're not in a village anymore. Or maybe you still are somewhere in that half-sleep world where goats steal hearts and coffee brews dreams. And stories take their time. There's no rush. No need to do anything at all. The night has already done it for you. So go ahead, sink deeper, let go. There's a warm mat under your spine, a hand-me-down blanket of words over your chest, and the scent. of ancient, whispering beings somewhere behind your thoughts. That sleep now. That the coffee remembers everything for you. That sweet dreams.